Hey, thanks for dropping by and checking out this message. These lessons come from our Sunday gatherings at Victory Christian Church in Franklin, Indiana. Our 5th through 8th graders meet at 9 or 10:30 a.m. and our high schoolers meet from 6 to 8 p.m. If you find that this content brings value to your life, then please consider subscribing and hitting that bell so that you can be notified when we upload our next message. Our hope is that this video brings more clarity into your life as to who God is and what He wants for you in light of who Jesus is and what He's done for you. Enjoy and have a great day.
All right, how are we doing this morning? Let's try that again. How are we doing this morning? Awesome. It's a beautiful day. There's a little glaze of snow on the ground, which always makes everything in life better, right? If it's going to be cold out, if it's going to be winter, there better be some snow to make it look pretty, right? How many of you are of that mindset? Okay, awesome. It's not just me. We've had a lot of rain lately, and it's getting me down a little bit, and I'd like it to just turn all the snow and wintry awesomeness, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get school canceled. You don't have that chance if it's just rain, right? Unless it's a lot of rain and it's flooding, which in Franklin, is not out of the realm of possibility. So, glad that you guys are here this morning. We are in one of our another trending lessons. We've had these different lessons kind of sprinkled throughout our series over the last couple of years. We've talked about bullying, we've talked about self-harm, we've talked about, anxiety. We've talked about a lot of different things that we say trending. We just mean that everybody kind of understands or knows about or deals with on one level or another. And today the topic we're going to talk about is no easy task, because it's something that affects everybody in the room statistically, if not directly, then indirectly. And it's something that has affected my own family, and I can see the results. So I don't just speak from an ideological standpoint. I speak from experience on some of these things. It's something that I do believe, if we let it, can allow God to make us stronger. When I think of stuff that goes well together, I think of peanut butter and chocolate. How many of you are Reese's fans? How many of you, it's just the old-fashioned peanut butter cup, that's your favorite? How many of you, it's like they came out with like a fast break thing, the Reese's, anybody like those? Nobody? How about the Reese's Pieces? I saw a bad habit when I was a kid. I called them Reese's Pieces, and now every once in a while I catch myself saying Reese's Pieces, and I didn't even realize I did it until like a few weeks ago, and someone was like, "What are you saying?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I said that as a kid. I should probably stop saying that." Right? The peanut butter and chocolate goes well together. Oreos and milk. Anybody you dunk that Oreo until it's nice and soggy and just you kind of suck the milk out of it as it dissolves in your mouth and try to get as much milk on the little speck in your hand left. And it just goes together. You can't just have one, right? I think there's a study done that said it's 10 times more addictive than heroin. So I don't know if that's true, but I read it once. And what else goes well together? Turn to the person on your right, tell them something that, in your opinion, is the best combination ever. Go. Okay. So 2 words we're going to focus on this morning is together and separate, right? Because there are certain things, Batman and Robin, they just go together. Certain things that they were made for each other, and there's certain things that really are not, like peanut butter and jalapenos, right? That would be disgusting, right? There's things that they should stay separate. When we think of the terms together and separate, they're powerful words. They can make or break a situation. They can make things work or make things not work. And together and separate in relationship to your family also carries lots and lots of weight. See, many of us, we struggle with something that is unfortunately common. And so sometimes when we struggle with the broken relationships that happen in our lives, we're told it's normal because everybody deals with it, and therefore we think we should get over it faster. Or we think we should just be able to move on and for it to not affect us. But that's just not the reality today. What we're going to be talking about is divorce. And there's lots of reasons why we're going to talk about it. But one of them is the fact that Hardly anybody, I doubt that anybody in this room could raise their hand and say that I don't know a single person who has wrestled with divorce. You either have parents that are divorced, or you know, or you have friends whose parents are currently going through or have gotten a divorce. And it's so normalized in our culture, we don't realize how much of an impact it has on us because we've kind of gone numb to it. But the reality is that divorce impacts a lot of us. And so when we think about this idea of divorce, a lot of us, we have different questions and different ideas when it comes to this. Some of us, it doesn't feel right. It feels like it should be. This separate thing feels like it's supposed to stay together. It's not supposed to be separate. It's supposed to be together. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. Don't ever separate it. Why would you even try, right? It shouldn't. And something inside of us feels like there's something not right with it. So let me just answer this question right out of the gate. Divorce isn't God's design for how marriage is supposed to work. Okay? It feels off, it feels broken, it feels not quite how it's supposed to feel, and there's a good reason for that. It's because it's not how God designed it. But I want you to remember something, is that in every family, in every person's life, all of us have imperfections. Therefore, all of us have brokenness, and therefore all of us show that brokenness in different ways. Okay? So while divorce isn't God's design for how marriage is supposed to work, divorce doesn't make your parents bad people, and it doesn't make God love them any less. And it's important to recognize that. Because all of us have baggage, all of us have things that we're supposed to do that we don't do, and many of us take a lot of things that God designed for good and we use it for our own benefit. And when that happens, brokenness always follows. And so it's not to point at people, at your parents. It's not to point at people who have made mistakes, because the reality is all of us do things every day that is not part of God's design. So when it comes to this idea of divorce, let me make one thing clear. Today we're not going to talk about your parents. We're not going to talk about what they should or shouldn't have done, or how they should have dealt with something, or whatever it is. We're just not going to go there, because it doesn't matter. Right now what we're going to talk about is you. How you can deal with such a heavy topic of divorce in your own life as middle schoolers, as people who are in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. As somebody who either has parents who are divorced, have been divorced, currently going through divorce, or has friends who are in any of those categories. It impacts all of us, and you need to know how to respond. And I had a lot of friends when I was your guys' age who had parents that were divorced. And it led a lot of questions for me. I wasn't even the kid in that situation, but I had a lot of questions. And so luckily I had a mom who answered a lot of those questions for me. But it's really good to understand the mindset, because the reality is I know that some of you in this room, you have parents who are divorced, or maybe you don't know anything different. Maybe it happened so long ago you don't even know what life is like with parents together. Maybe some of you, your parents were never together, so this whole idea of divorce really doesn't resonate with you. And some of you, your parents are going through divorce right now, and so this is a little fresh. And for some of you, you feel like you can't relate because your parents aren't getting divorced, and you've never had to go through that before. And some of you probably wish your parents would get divorced, because then maybe they'd stop fighting. And so I understand that there's a lot of you in the room from different perspectives. And so the goal of today is just to help us all kind of get on the same page and understand what it is, how we can deal with it, no matter what situation we're in, and what God thinks of it. So if you are someone whose parents have gone through divorce, then perhaps some of the things that you think is that sometimes it feels like you're in the middle of your parents. You're hearing both sides. You're hearing one thing from mom, one thing from dad, and you feel like you have to pick sides, and you just, it's difficult. Sometimes you feel like you're the go-between. And that's never fun. Maybe you feel like you're seeing your parents in a different light because you're aware of some things that you weren't aware of before, and it makes you see your parents different. And that's hard too. Maybe for you, divorce means that you feel more responsibility. Like you got to pick up some of the extra slack because you're only living with one parent now, and that means you need to pick up some slack and take care of some more things. Maybe you need to be an emotional support for your parents, and that feels like a lot, and it is. So maybe you feel like divorce just means more responsibility. Maybe in you, the divorce or conflict in your home has changed the relationships in your family. Maybe you used to be close with a parent and now you're not. Maybe it changed how you felt about them and so your relationship changed. But either way, divorce can throw a lot of feelings on us that, quite frankly, we were never supposed to feel because, like we mentioned before, it's not how God designed marriage to work. And so how do we handle these feelings? If you're a friend of someone going through this, how do you handle being a good support system in the midst of that? And the reason that we're going to talk about it today is because statistically speaking, around half the people in this room, about 50%, are impacted directly by divorce in their lives. Meaning there's divorce in your family. I would debate that those statistics are even higher than 50%. But it's just so commonplace now, sometimes we don't know how to talk about it. And just to be transparent, my parents, I grew up in a good Christian home, and my parents talked openly about these kind of things. And I'm fortunate today, they're still happily married. They just celebrated their 30th anniversary, and it's great. I'm happy for them. But for my mom, that was not her story. For my mom, she also grew up in a good Christian home. Her dad actually was a preacher. And my grandma, her mom, ended up filing for divorce and left my mom and her two brothers, who were like 5 and 4 at the time. And she was left feeling like she had to be the mom. She was the oldest of her brothers, and my grandpa was real shaken up by it. And, you know, for my mom and for my family's history, I grew up having 3 grandmas because my grandpa eventually remarried, and actually my grandma did too. And so I remember as a kid asking Fred if I could call him grandpa because he's married to my grandma, and he said that was fine, and my mom was really uncomfortable with that. And I remember navigating some of those questions, and actually just a couple weeks ago, my parents were in town to meet Ezra, who was our new baby boy, and the topic came up, and I hadn't even started working on this message yet, but I asked her some questions, you know, like, so what was that? Because you were 12. I was like, yeah, you were 12. So, and my mom said, you know, there were 2 years she didn't speak to my grandma. My uncle, I've talked to him before. He was 4 at the time. He, as an adult, did not talk to my grandma for many years. And they've all worked their stuff out now, and I think both my grandparents are, you know, they're right with God. They've worked through the issues. But divorce forever changed how my family would work. And it had implications, you know, 2 generations later. So how do we help ourselves and help our friends handle divorce? And what I want you to know is that God is with you. And even though your family might change, God doesn't. Even though your family might change, it might look different, might go through stuff, God never changes. And we're going to read from a passage in Psalms. This is what the author wrote, and I think it's super important. He's not specifically talking about divorce, but he's talking about when we go through hard times. When our world around us crumbles, this is what he says. Psalm chapter 46, verses 1 through 3. It says, God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. The earth give way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake in their surging, I will not fear. That's the middle part of that passage. I will not fear. And it's so important to recognize. Because in the midst of trials, of hard times, we have to remember that God doesn't change and that He is with us. When our world is falling apart, everything around us seems to be changing, God isn't. He is our constant. He is our foundation. And if we even look to the imagery, I love the imagery that the psalmist used. He says, the earth gives way. Now, I got a couple pictures of you. Some of them are Photoshopped. Some of them are real. But when we think about the earth giving way, like, we think about the things that are in our lives that if we don't have a foot to stand on, you can go ahead and show that first picture there. When we don't have a foot to stand on, it feels like the world is coming apart under us, and we lose our footing, and we can fall in and be swallowed up. And that's I love that terminology. You can show the next picture even. It feels like we're just on our way in life, and the earth just gives way, and everything we thought we knew, that we thought we could stand on, falls apart. The next piece of imagery he says is the mountains fall into the sea. And the mountains are the symbol of strength and might. It's symbolic for its steadfastness. And when we feel like even the mountains in our life are giving way and falling into the sea, it feels like, where do we stand and where is God? The waters roar and foam. Maybe home is no longer a peaceful place. Maybe home has become a place where there's constantly fighting or unrest. And you feel like you're about to drown in the chaos of it. It feels like everything is changing, but the psalmist says, we will not fear. While everything else is changing, God never does. Even when your family changes, God doesn't. And I love the way that Paul puts this in Romans chapter 12. He says, to be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. So there are certain things about our families that we can't control. And we have to be able to accept those things, because a lot of times, if something is going on in our family, we feel guilty as the kids. We feel like maybe there's something I could have done different, but there are certain things about our families we can't control. But we can control how we respond. We can control what we're going to do with it. We can choose to have hope. We can choose to be patient. We can keep praying. And even when our family changes, God doesn't. Okay? When I say the first part, I want you to say God doesn't. So even when our family changes, it's true. And the more you say it, the more likely you are to believe it. So if you're going through this right now yourself, or if you've gone through it in the past, or still dealing with the ramifications of something that has happened in your family like this, then I want you to remember a few things. One thing, God is with you and He doesn't change. Okay? That means He will always be by your side. He will always be with you. 2, choose to respect and love your parents, because it can be difficult, but odds are there are parts of the story you just aren't aware of. So choose to love and respect your parents. 3rd, control what you can control. Don't be bearing the guilt or the weight of any of the situation that is beyond your control. 4, it's okay to feel a lot of things. Okay? Emotions are normal, especially when you're going through a time that is not how God designed. When we experience brokenness, it stirs up a lot of emotions, and it's okay to feel what you feel. 5, talk to a trusted adult. Don't just bottle it up. Talk about how you feel. And maybe that person can help guide you into moving forward. Now, if you know somebody who is going through a situation, or who has gone through situations, some tips for you is 1, to listen. 2, let them know that you're there. Okay? And don't try to force them to confide in you, but just let them know that you're there if they ever do want to talk, and be willing to listen. 3, invite them to hang out. Sometimes that's just a good distraction from what's going on, just friendships. 4, encourage them to go to God. Don't encourage them not to get bitter. It's so easy to become bitter and angry, but encourage them to take that to God. Because even when your family changes, God doesn't. So we're going to get ready to sing one more song together, a word of worship together. And I encourage you to make this your prayer, to make this next song something that you sing. And it's a familiar song. We've done it before. But as we sing it, I encourage you to make it your prayer this morning. That no matter what's going on, remember who God is, and that He never changes, and that He always will love you. So, and then after that, we're going to get ready to go to small groups. And one question I want you to think of during this song and as you go to small group is, what's one thing I can do to help myself or a friend deal with divorce?
Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed so you're notified when we upload future videos. Have a great day.